Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Nathan Reed is a mechanical engineer specializing in automotive design, working for an auto parts manufacturing company in Seattle. He loved creating and fixing things with his hands, which gave him a sense of control, a certainty in a chaotic world. At the age of 19, both of his parents were killed in a car accident, leaving him alone with the 1968 Ford Mustang sports car his father left him. The car became the last link between him and his father, and the reason he chose to major in automotive engineering. At the age of 24, he met Olivia, a high school music teacher. It was at his friend Brian's wedding, and Olivia was the bride's college roommate. There she stood, wearing a light blue bridesmaid's dress, holding flowers, her smile bright as sunshine. Their eyes met in the center of the dance floor, as if time had frozen in that moment. "I'm Nathan," he said, his heart racing as he approached her. "Olivia," she responded with a smile. "You're a friend of the groom?" "Yes, we went to college together." "So you're that car repair genius Brian's always talking about?" Nathan laughed. "He said that about me?" "To be exact, he said you could bring any engine back from the dead." Olivia's eyes twinkled with curiosity. "That's an exaggeration, but I do like working on cars." They talked throughout the night, realizing that they shared similar family backgrounds. Olivia's parents passed away when she was 18 due to illness, leaving her to face the world alone. This shared sense of loss led to a quick emotional connection. 6 months later, they were married. It was a small and cozy wedding, attended only by their closest friends. Nathan remembers the way Olivia looked as she walked towards him, her white wedding dress framing her brown eyes and long black hair. So beautiful it took his breath away. They made their vows, promising to be with each other for the rest of their lives. The first few years of their marriage were blissful. They moved into a small house in the suburbs of Seattle, where Nathan worked at an auto parts company and Olivia taught music at the local high school. 2 years later, Emma was born, and their little family seemed perfect. Nathan remembers the feeling of picking up Emma for the first time, that tiny being in his arms, completely dependent on him. In that moment, he promised to be the best father in the world and protect her forever. However, life soon began to get complicated. Olivia is promoted to head of the music department, and the pressure of her job increases, while Nathan's company begins to require him to travel, sometimes for weeks at a time. They spend less and less time together and communicate less. Nathan begins to notice a change in Olivia. She started paying more attention to her appearance, buying new clothes, getting a new haircut, and even started going to the gym. At first, he thought it was just her way of adjusting to her new role, but soon he began to suspect there was more to it. One day, Nathan comes home early from a business trip and wants to surprise Olivia. When he walks in the door, the house is unusually quiet. Emma was playing at the neighbor's house, which was their regular schedule. He walks towards the bedroom and hears Olivia's laughter coming from inside, followed by a man's voice. His heart sank and his hand gripped the doorknob, but hesitated. He wasn't sure he was ready to face the scene behind the door. Eventually, he turned away and drove to a nearby hotel to stay. He couldn't sleep that night, as the possibilities continued to float through his mind. The next day, he returned home and acted as if he had just returned. Olivia seemed normal and even gave him a warm hug. "You're home early," she said in surprise. "Why didn't you tell me ahead of time?" "Wanted to surprise you," Nathan said, watching her reaction carefully. "What were you doing last night?" "Oh, nothing special," Olivia replies absently, grading students' homework and watching some TV. Lies. A voice screamed in his mind, but he kept a calm surface. Over the next few weeks, Nathan began to notice more details. Olivia's cell phone was always password locked. She often walked to another room when she received certain calls, and she was coming home later and later in the evening. So he made the difficult decision to hire a private investigator. It's not something he wants to do, but he needs to be sure his suspicions are well-founded. Private investigator Mitch was recommended by a friend of his from college and was said to be very professional and discreet. "I need to know if my wife is cheating on me," Nathan said bluntly, sitting in Mitch's office. Mitch nodded without showing any surprise. "I need information on her daily schedule, where she works, and who you suspect, if anyone." "I'm not sure who it is," Nathan admitted, "but she recently mentioned a new music teacher named Thomas and seemed impressed with him." "I'll look into it," Mitch promised, "but you need to be prepared to face whatever comes of it." A week later, Mitch returned with evidence. Photographs showed Olivia entering a hotel with a tall blonde man, then images of them talking intimately in the hotel restaurant, and finally of them leaving together, holding hands. He's a music teacher at the school, Mitch explained. Thomas Wilson, 28, single, moved to Seattle from New York 2 years ago. Nathan felt a wave of nausea. How long have they been dating? At least 3 months, according to my research, Mitch replied. They meet every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, usually at this hotel. 3 months. Just about the time he started traveling more frequently. Nathan took the photos and the survey, paid for them, and drove home. He locked the documents in the glove compartment of his car, unsure of what to do next. That night, he decided not to confront Olivia just yet. He needed more information, a complete picture. He decided to observe for a while longer while he began to protect his assets. He consulted an attorney to learn about the divorce process and possible outcomes. If there's solid evidence of cheating, you'll be in a good position for property division and child custody, attorney Marcus told him. But you'll need more evidence, preferably with a record of time, place, and continuity. Over the next few weeks, Nathan began documenting Olivia's whereabouts, keeping records of her texts and calls, and even installing hidden cameras in his home. He knew these actions were morally questionable, but he needed to protect himself and Emma's future. The real blow, however, comes when he examines the family's financial records. Over the past few months, there have been several large expenditures that he was completely unaware of. Upscale restaurant bills, jewelry store purchases, and even a plane ticket to New York. Olivia never mentioned any trip to New York. Upon further investigation, he discovered that Olivia had secretly opened a separate bank account and transferred a portion of her paycheck into it. This isn't just cheating, this is betrayal on a deeper level. She's preparing for a possible separation. The final straw is when he finds an email sent to Thomas by Olivia. The contents made his blood curdle. Dear T, I've come up with a plan to leave. Once the semester is over, we can go to New York together. Nathan will get custody weekend visitation so we can have a life of our own. You're right. Life is too short to waste on someone you no longer love. Love always, dough. In that moment, Nathan's world fell apart. Not only was he cheating on his wife, but Olivia was already making plans to take Emma and leave him. He couldn't accept that. Emma was the most important person in his life, and he couldn't lose her. But as he calmed down and thought about it, a horrible thought came to mind. If Olivia's relationship with Thomas has been going on for more than 3 months, is Emma really his daughter? He remembers when Emma was born, she looked so much like him, with the same blue eyes and golden brown hair. But now the seeds of doubt had been planted. He needed to know the truth, no matter how painful. After a routine medical checkup, Nathan keeps a sample of his own blood and takes Emma to the same clinic with the excuse that she has a cold. He asked the doctor to run some extra tests to make sure everything was okay. When the doctor left the room, he quickly took a sample of Emma's mouth swab. He sent both samples to a private DNA testing facility and requested a paternity test. The 2 weeks waiting for the results were the longest of his life. Every night, he watched Emma sleep and pondered how differently he would feel if she were not his biological daughter. The answer? No different. No matter what the DNA results were, Emma was his daughter in his heart. The results had finally come in. He sat in his car, the white envelope in his hand, afraid to open it. Finally, he took a deep breath and tore open the envelope. Probability of paternity exclusion, 99. 9,999%. Those cold words stabbed into his heart like knives. Emma was not his biological daughter. All his suspicions were confirmed. All his fears became reality. He sat in his car and cried, for the trust lost, for the love betrayed, for the little girl he thought was part of him but really wasn't. As he calmed down, a new emotion replaced the sadness. Anger. Anger not just at Olivia, but at the whole situation. He decided to stop waiting passively and take proactive action. He began to formulate a plan. First, he needed to secure his finances. He transferred most of his savings into a new, secret account, took out a portion of their joint investment, and made sure Olivia didn't have access to those funds. He then began to gather more evidence of Olivia and Thomas's relationship, including his email exchanges, text message logs, and photos and videos of them meeting. Finally, he contacted one of the best divorce attorneys, Sandra Johnson, in order to begin the divorce process. Based on the evidence you've provided, We have a strong case for asking the court to support your claim, Sandra said after reviewing all the materials, especially in light of the DNA test results and her intent to plan to take the children away. I want full custody, Nathan said firmly. I may not be Emma's biological father, but I have been the only father figure in her life for the past 7 years. I'm not going to let her take Emma away from me. It's going to be an uphill battle, Sandra warned him. The courts usually tend to keep children with their mothers unless there's clear evidence that the mother is unfit to parent. Then we'll find such evidence, Nathan said firmly. Over the next few months, Nathan began to execute his plan. He continued to gather evidence while pretending that everything was normal. He didn't want to spook anyone, at least not until all the preparations were complete. He discovered that Olivia's reference to the end of the semester in her plan was a reference to the upcoming summer break. That gave him about 3 months. He had to get everything done before then or risk losing Emma. In the meantime, he began to document every incident where Olivia missed Emma's performances and events because she was dating Thomas. He makes sure Emma knows who really cares about her needs and wants. He also starts looking for evidence of Olivia's past. By digging deeper, he realizes this isn't the first time Olivia has cheated on him. Before they met, she had been in relationships with at least 2 married men. And even more shocking, he discovers who Emma's real biological father might be. Thomas is not Emma's father. Extrapolating from the timeline, Emma's biological father was likely Olivia's college-age boyfriend, a musician named Ryan Cooper. Nathan found Ryan's social media accounts and saw his picture. The resemblance is striking. Same eyes, same smile, even the same hairline. When everything is ready, Nathan decides to confront Olivia. He chose a Friday night when Emma was spending the night at a friend's house. He sits in the living room and waits for Olivia to come home. When she walked through the door, she looked both surprised and upset. "You're home early today." "Sit down, Olivia," Nathan said calmly. "We need to talk." She sat carefully on the couch, her hands on her knees. "Talk about what?" "Thomas," he said simply, watching for her reaction. Her face changed immediately, first in surprise, then in fear, and finally in a strange relief, as if she could finally drop the pretense. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to gather this." He placed the photos, emails, and text message logs on the coffee table. "Long enough to find this." He pulled out the DNA test results, and long enough to prepare for this. He pulled out the divorce papers. Olivia's face turned pale. "Nathan, I can explain." "Explain what?" His voice remains calm, but contains anger. "Explain how you lied to me for 7 years and made me believe that Emma was my daughter? Explain how you planned to take her away from me to live with your new lover? Or explain how you stole our joint fortune?" "It's not what you think." Olivia begins to cry. "I love you, but things have changed between us." "Stop lying." Nathan raised his voice for the first time. "You never loved me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me like this." "Who is Emma's real father, Olivia? Is it Ryan?" Olivia looks up in shock at the name. "How do you know about Ryan?" "So it's true." Nathan smiles bitterly. "Emma is Ryan's daughter, and you've been lying to me the whole time." "Ryan was gone by the time I found out I was pregnant," Olivia admitted, her voice trembling. "I love you, Nathan. I really do. I thought we could make a perfect family." "Through lies? Through deception?" Nathan shook his head. "Sign it, Olivia. I've arranged everything. You can take your clothes and personal belongings, but the house and most of the property will go to me. As for Emma, I'm going to fight for full custody." "You can't do that," Olivia exclaimed. "She's my daughter." "Yes, biologically she is. But who's really been raising her for the last 7 years? Who attended every one of her shows, every parent-teacher conference? Who took care of her when she was sick?" "It wasn't you, Olivia. It's always been me." "The courts will never agree," Olivia countered. "The mother always gets custody. Not when the mother plans to leave privately with the child and there is evidence of cheating and financial fraud," Nathan replied calmly. "My attorney has all the paperwork ready. You can cooperate and get reasonable visitation, or you can fight it and lose everything. The choice is yours." Olivia was silent for a long time, tears running down her cheeks. Eventually, she looked up with a coldness in her eyes that Nathan had never seen before. "You think you've won? You thought this was the end? You're wrong, Nathan. This is just beginning." She stood up and walked towards the door. "I'm not signing any papers. I'm not giving up my daughter, and I'm not letting you get away with it." You want a lawsuit? Come on then. I'll make you regret your decision today." As the door slammed shut, Nathan knew that the real battle had just begun. The next few months were the toughest of Nathan's life. Olivia, as she had promised, refused to cooperate with every step of the divorce proceedings. She hired her own attorney and began an all-out legal battle. "She claims that you emotionally abused her," Sandra told Nathan in a meeting, "and she also claims that you engaged in inappropriate behavior with Emma." Nathan looks at her in shock. "That's a complete lie." "I know," Sandra reassures him. "These are desperate tactics. She knows she's at a disadvantage, so she's trying to turn the tables by smearing you." "What do? We fight back," Sandra said firmly. "We have the truth and the evidence on our side." Court hearing after court hearing. Each time she appeared in court, Nathan had to face Olivia's lies and accusations. Her lawyers portray her as a misunderstood wife, a woman seeking true love, while Nathan is portrayed as a controlling, absentee husband. But Nathan and Sandra are prepared. They presented all the evidence: photos, emails, text message logs, financial documents, even records of Olivia missing Emma's events. They also found several willing witnesses, including Emma's teachers, neighbors, and family friends, all of whom testified that Nathan was a devoted father. The most decisive evidence was the DNA test results and Olivia's emails planning to take Emma away. When these were shown in court, the judge's expression visibly changed. These emails clearly show that the defendant intended to take the child out of the state without the knowledge and consent of the plaintiff, the judge said after reviewing the evidence. "This is a serious matter." Olivia's attorney tried to argue that these were just hypothetical discussions, but the judge wasn't buying it. The defendant appears to have taken concrete steps to implement this plan, including purchasing airline tickets and finding a residence in New York, the judge noted, which goes beyond a simple discussion. As the case progressed, Olivia began to become more and more desperate. She tried to contact Nathan with a settlement offer, but he refused. He knows that once he gives in, she will find an opportunity to take advantage. Meanwhile, Nathan begins to investigate Emma's real biological father, Ryan Cooper. He learns that Ryan is now a successful music producer in New York, married with 2 children. Through social media and mutual friends, Nathan gathers information about Ryan, including his contact information. After much deliberation, Nathan decided to contact Ryan, not to involve him in Emma's life, but to confirm his suspicions and possibly use this information in court. He sent Ryan a brief email explaining the situation and attaching a picture of Emma. The reply came sooner than he expected. "Oh my God, I didn't know Olivia was pregnant. We haven't been in touch since we broke up. The baby does look like me. I need time to digest this information." A few days later, Ryan contacted Nathan again and requested a DNA test to confirm paternity. The test results confirmed Nathan's suspicions that Ryan was Emma's biological father. With this information, Nathan and Sandra had a stronger position in court. Not only did they prove Olivia's deception, but they also found Emma's biological father, a man who didn't know he had a daughter until recently. "We now have 3 key parties: the plaintiff, the defendant, and the child's biological father," Sandra stated in court. "Given the defendant's deceptive behavior and intent to plan to take the child away, we request that the court grant the plaintiff full temporary custody until a full evaluation of all aspects can be made." The judge granted the request, granting Nathan temporary full custody while allowing Olivia limited visitation, which must be supervised. It was a major victory, but the battle was far from over. Olivia became even more angry and vindictive. She began posting negative content about Nathan on social media, contacting his friends and coworkers in an attempt to destroy his reputation. She even went to his work, causing a public scene. "You can't do this to me," she yelled down the office hall, drawing everyone's attention. "You stole my daughter." Nathan's boss, Martin, called him into his office. "What's going on, Nathan?" Nathan briefly explained the situation, along with providing court documents as proof. Martin nodded understandingly. "I'm sorry you're going through this. If you need time or any kind of support, please let me know." Nathan gratefully accepted the support, but he knew Olivia wouldn't stop there. She would continue to try to sabotage him until she got what she wanted. He needed a stronger strategy. Through Sandra's advice, Nathan begins to gather more evidence about Olivia's unfitness to raise. He discovers that not only is she involved with Thomas, but she is also having an affair with another teacher at the school. Her financial management was also a mess, often overspending and racking up debt. Most importantly, she began to neglect Emma's needs, missing doctor's appointments, forgetting school events, and even leaving Emma home alone on a few occasions because she was dating Thomas. All of this was documented and presented to the court. The judge began to express her obvious displeasure with Olivia's behavior. The defendant does not appear to have the best interests of the child at heart, the judge commented at one of the hearings, and that is concerning. As the final judgment date approached, Nathan felt both nervous and hopeful. He knew the court's decision would determine his and Emma's future. On the day of court, the courthouse was packed. Nathan sat on one side with Sandra next to him, looking confident and calm. Olivia sits across from her lawyer, her eyes red and swollen, obviously having cried. The judge begins to read the verdict. Considering all of the evidence and testimony presented, this court finds that the defendant, Olivia Reed, has been deceptive in several ways, including concealing the true paternity of the child and planning to remove the child from the state without the plaintiff's consent. In addition, defendant's recent behavior demonstrates that she does not have the best interests of the child at heart. Accordingly, this court grants plaintiff Nathan Reed full legal custody of Emma Reed, a minor. Defendant Olivia Reed will be granted limited visitation rights, which will be subject to supervision initially, after which may be reevaluated on a case-by-case basis. With respect to the division of property, in consideration of defendant's financial misconduct, this court decrees that the family home shall be owned by plaintiff and that the funds in the joint account shall be divided between plaintiff and defendant in the ratio of 70/30. The defendant shall be responsible for paying his own legal fees. Nathan felt a wave of relief surge through his body. He'd won. He could continue to raise Emma and provide her with a stable and loving home environment. As he walked out of the courtroom, he saw Olivia standing in the hallway with a look of hatred on her face that he had never seen before. "You ruined my life," she whispered, "and you're going to regret it." Nathan didn't respond, just walked away. He knew Olivia's threats were just empty words. She had lost everything: her credibility, most of her possessions, and most importantly, her daughter. The next few months were a time of adjustment and acclimatization. Emma was confused and upset by the change, but Nathan helped her adjust as best he could. He arranged counseling for her to make sure she understood that what had happened was not her fault. "Where did Mom go?" Emma asked one day. "Mom needs some time to deal with her issues," Nathan replied carefully. "But she still loves you, and you'll see her again." It was a difficult question to answer, but Nathan decided not to instill a negative view of Olivia and Emma. No matter what, Olivia is still her mother. Over time, they establish a new routine. Nathan adjusted his work schedule to make sure he could attend all of Emma's events. He learned how to brush her hair, how to help her choose clothes, and how to comfort her when she was sad. It wasn't easy, but seeing Emma gradually return to happiness made it all worthwhile. Olivia had supervised visitation as ordered by the court, but her involvement became less and less. She began missing appointments, canceling plans, and sometimes not even showing up. Emma was disappointed each time, but Nathan did his best to comfort her. "Mom's busy," he would say, "but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you." Despite his heart, he knew the truth was more complicated. According to his sources, Olivia's relationship with Thomas had ended, and she was now with another man, a businessman from California. She seems to be starting her life over, leaving the past behind, including Emma. A year later, Nathan receives a letter from Olivia's attorney requesting a change in the visitation schedule. She wants to reduce the number of visits on the grounds that she is moving to California to live with a new partner. Nathan was both surprised and angry. Not only does she want to leave, she wants to reduce her contact with Emma. But after calming down, he realizes that this may be for the best. Olivia's erratic presence could be more damaging to Emma than her complete absence. He agrees to the modification, but adds one condition: that Olivia must continue to pay support and must speak to Emma at least once a month. If she did not comply with these conditions, she would lose all visitation rights. With Olivia's move to California, Nathan and Emma's life became more peaceful. They built their own little world of love, trust, and stability. Nathan even started dating, albeit very carefully, making sure that anyone who entered their lives had to be genuinely concerned about Emma's well-being. It was during this time that he met Caroline, the sister of a co-worker, a single mother with a son around Emma's age. They begin dating slowly, careful to acclimate their respective children to each other's presence. Caroline understood Nathan's caution, having been through a bad marriage herself. 2 years later, they were married. It was a small and cozy ceremony, attended only by their closest friends and family. Emma was the flower girl and looked happier than Nathan had ever seen her. Caroline's son, Michael, was the ring bearer, and the two children danced together after the ceremony, smiling from ear to ear. Nathan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. After all the pain and struggle, he had finally found happiness. However, life is always full of surprises. Olivia is disillusioned with her new life in California, and her new relationship falls apart. When Nathan receives her request for her original visitation rights to be reinstated, he is unsure how to respond. Emma is now 9 years old and starting to form her own opinions. When he asks her if she wants to see her mom more often, she appears hesitant. She always promises things and then doesn't do them, Emma said, with a maturity in her voice far beyond her years. I don't want to be disappointed again. Nathan looked at his daughter with heartache, realizing how much damage Olivia's erratic behavior had already done. But he also knew that as a parent, sometimes tough decisions had to be made. If mom really wants to see you and shows that she'll keep her word, we can give her a chance, he offered. But it's up to you, Emma. If you don't want to see her, you don't have to. Emma considered for a moment, then nodded. I want to give her a chance. But if she lets me down again, it's over. Nathan was proud of his daughter's wisdom and courage. He contacted Olivia and set clear conditions. She had to prove herself reliable. She had to respect Emma's boundaries. And most importantly, she had to always put Emma's needs first. Olivia agreed to these conditions and behaved well over the next few months. She showed up on time, kept her promises, and seemed to be making a real effort to rebuild her relationship with Emma. However, the change didn't last long. As time went on, she once again began to become unreliable. Appointments were canceled, phone calls weren't returned, and promises were broken. Each disappointment left deeper scars in Emma's heart. When Olivia canceled her plans 3 times in a row, Emma made a decision. She no longer wanted to see her mother. I've had enough, Dad, she said, tears in her eyes. I don't want this anymore. Nathan held his daughter and let her cry in his arms. He felt both heartbroken and angry. Heartbroken that Emma had to go through this, and angry that Olivia had trivialized her daughter's feelings so much. He contacted Sandra and began legal proceedings to have Olivia's visitation rights terminated based on her continued failure to comply with visitation arrangements and the emotional damage she was causing Emma. The court sided with them and terminated Olivia's visitation rights unless Emma volunteered to see her, and it had to be done in the presence of a counselor. As the chapter closes, Nathan feels a sense of relief, but also a tinge of sadness. He never thought it would come to this, but he knows it was necessary to protect Emma. 7 years later, Emma is a bright, confident 16-year-old. She excels in school, is a member of the choir, and dreams of becoming a doctor. Nathan and Caroline have a stable and happy marriage, and their blended family is full of love and mutual support. Nathan often wonders what life would have been like if he hadn't found out about Olivia's betrayal, if he had chosen to turn a blind eye. But watching Emma grow up healthy and happy, and the beautiful family he and Caroline have built, he knows he made the right choice. Revenge isn't always sweet. It often comes with pain, anger, and disappointment. But sometimes it's necessary, not to hurt the other person, but to protect himself and those he loves. Nathan's revenge was not through violence or malice, but through law and justice. He defeats lies and deception with facts and evidence, and ultimately wins what he holds most dear, Emma's future. And what of Olivia? As far as Nathan knows, she's still in California, hopping from relationship to relationship, forever searching for what she believes is true love. She lost her daughter, she lost her family, she lost everything she ever had. This is the price of betrayal. This is the consequence of lies. Nathan thinks of her occasionally, but not with hate, only with a distant sadness. Sadness that she chose this path, sadness that Emma had to suffer the loss of her mother. But life moved on, wounds would heal and new happiness would come. Next to the Ford Mustang his father left behind, Nathan teaches Emma how to change the oil, just as his father once taught him. It's legacy, it's connection, it's what really matters. Not blood, but love, trust, and commitment. Dad, Emma said, looking up from under the hood, a little motor oil on her face. Thank you. For what? Nathan asked, handing her a clean rag. For everything, she said simply. For choosing me, for fighting, for never giving up. Nathan felt his throat tighten, but he just nodded and patted her shoulder. Some words don't need to be spoken. Some loves don't need to be proven by blood. Later that night, as the family sat around the dinner table, Nathan looked at his family. Caroline was helping Michael cut the steak, and Emma was telling them funny stories about what happened at school. This was the life he had bought with pain and sacrifice. This was the happiness he had earned through courage and determination. Olivia's betrayal had almost destroyed him once, but in the end, it had made him stronger. It taught him what was truly important and what was worth fighting for. It gave him Caroline. It gave him an intact family, and most importantly, it ensured that Emma would grow up in a loving and stable environment. Revenge succeeded, not by destroying Olivia, but by protecting Emma. Not through hate, but through justice. Nathan won everything he deserved, and Olivia lost everything she could have had. That's the power of choice, and that's the consequence of action. In this house in the suburbs of Seattle, in this reorganized family, Nathan finds what he's been looking for. Not perfection, but reality. Not a fairy tale, but realistic happiness. And that's all it takes. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.